Welcome in, everyone. It is a Sunday episode during international break. It is me, Daniel Brackett, your host of the Full-Time Roundup podcast, and joined next to me is my good friend, Maxie Kid Umansky. Max, how are we doing today?
Daniel, first and foremost, I'm doing great, man. But thanks for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to talking about some soccer here today. I've been asking for a while to pop on, so this should be a good time. It's a great Sunday to do this.
Absolutely. And we saw each other last night before the FC match. But for you are a listener of the show, but for people who do not know who you are, give us just a little bit of bio of your playing career and everything like that, who you're a fan of, stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. So I was a former Division I college goalie, Siena College. Played all 4 years there, graduated 2021. So soccer's been a huge part of my life ever since I was a kid, as long as I could remember. And I'm a huge Spurs fan. I know Daniel's not a big fan of me for that one, but big Spurs supported them, ever since I really started following soccer, and it's really all my soccer background. But yeah, not too much there.
Max is also living in Charlotte now, and we actually split season tickets for Charlotte FC as well. So got him to buy into the club here, and we enjoy going to the games together for sure. But the first thing that I wanted to kind of talk about today was the U.S. national team and kind of the game they played a couple days ago against a, not at full strength Jamaican squad. And we made it really hard on ourselves to start the game out on our own soil. We conceded within the first minute, could not score a goal. It seemed like we were going to crash out. And then, at the death of the game, corner, Miles Robinson flicks it on for an own goal, and we end up cruising in extra time to move on to the finals against Mexico. Max, from what you saw in that match, did you, draw any conclusions about any players, the manager, how we played, anything of that nature?
For me personally, I think the U.S. men's national team has a very, star-studded, not even 11, just a whole squad. You take a look at everyone's all playing in top leagues in Europe, top teams in Europe as well. And I think just end of the day, it just, for me personally, just comes down to Berhalter. I don't think he should be the guy at the wheel. And it's been proven time and time again, just the results they're getting against, like you said, a not really strong Jamaica side. As good as they are, they have a lot of decent quality players, Premier League players, but the U.S., with the talent they have, they should be cruising against a team like Jamaica, especially at home as well. For me, just the style of play that Berhalter has, they never look like they're coming out to attack. They're just sitting back, hoping for something to go their way. And you could see early on Jamaica scoring, and it just didn't really look good. We got lucky at the end with a late own goal and then in overtime, Haji Wright and Gio Reyna doing well. It's just, for me, they need a new manager. And I think it proved to in the World Cup. For me, in every game, it was like, I don't know. They would go on the front foot, they'd score first, and then just sit back for the rest of the game. And I remember watching that type of soccer is very nerve-wracking, especially the game against Iran. They were up 1-0, they needed to win, and then that second half just scary. And it just time and time again, it's all it comes down to. And coming to Copa America this summer, it's going to be a little tough. Berhalter will be at the wheel then still, but I don't know. For me, it's a huge problem.
Yeah, you make a good point. I feel like Greg has been our coach for a while now, and he's done a good job of, getting us to where we need to go. But it seems like we've almost hit like a ceiling in terms of where he can take us, and it's time for a new manager to come in and refreshing the squad. And there's a couple things we can discuss when it comes to Greg and the national team, generally speaking. A lot of the Paramount Plus guys after the match were talking about, just tactically, with the talent that we have, it's just not really showing up on the field. I mean, we against Jamaica, I think our XG, which was less than 1, on home soil with a very strong starting lineup. You get Balogun, and the thing that sucks the most probably is when Berhalter, before he re-signed on with the national team, we got to see a different style of play with Anthony Hudson and BJ Callahan. And it seems like those two coaches got more out of the national team stylistically than Berhalter ever has. And you can look at the record of how the U.S. performs against, top 20 opponents other than Mexico. It's really poor. And we've just, that Mexico record is good, but we're also talking about a Mexican team that hasn't been as good historically speaking. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the final goes. But I wanted to not move on from it, but I wanted to at least get do you think you got the lineup right? Like, how did you like that starting XI? Tillman started in the middle. We had McKinney and Musa in the midfield, and then had Pulisic, Balogun, Weah in the front, and then we had Joe Scally on the right, Chris Richards, Miles Robinson, and Anthony Robinson on the left side with our boy Turner in goal.
Yeah, the lineup was great. Like, I have no complaints with that. It's just, again, the style of play that they bring is just the players they have. It can be so much better, and I expect way more out of them. And the lineup's good. The bench is good as well. I mean, Joe Scally he's a very good player. I feel like typically destined to be there if he wasn't hurt.
Well, he was suspended for this match after that red card.
That's right. Yeah. So, yeah, it was a strong lineup. I think Miles Robinson, Chris Richards, probably the two best center backs. I mean, Tim Ream's good, but he's getting up there in age. I'm happy that Walker Zimmerman isn't there anymore. He's a good player, but I just think those two are a lot better than him. Tyler Adams can be in there. I think, is he injured as well?
Yeah, he's still coming back. He played 30, 40 minutes, I'd say. Mm-hmm. It would be interesting to see because he just came back from that long-term injury for the Bournemouth. He's on limited minutes. He wasn't happy about being taken off or being, taken off in extra time. It'll be interesting to see. I like the lineup. I didn't like how Musa played at all. I thought he was very, just very lackadaisical with the ball at times.
Pretty static, yeah.
Pretty static. What I would like to see is Johnny Cardoso get the start with McKinney in Reina in the middle of the park against Mexico. I thought Tillman played well. I would actually like to see Weah dropped and Tillman on the right wing with Balogun or Pepe up top or Haji Wright. I mean, hell, he scored a brace. And then Pulisic on the left, of course, to start against Mexico. But yeah, Gio Reyna, got his opportunity in late in the game and then delivered in extra time. So did Haji Wright, who has had a wonderful 2 weeks after his big goal with Coventry in the FA Cup and then scoring a brace to bring us to the finals. So he's definitely, for me, taking his chance in this camp. And the U.S. national team striker pool gets even more intriguing when you have, Sargent, who got a knock, Pepe, Balogun, and him, as well as Pefok and Brandon Vasquez not even getting a peek in right now.
Yeah, no, that's a solid all-around 11 squad, etc. It's just really, really good. And again, just needs someone else at the wheel. With the talent they have, I expect more. And like I said, there's just so many different lineups you can have, and they're all so good. Like you said, too, Cardozo is a player. You don't really know much about him on the national team. He hasn't really got too much of a chance, but man's been killing it at Betis in La Liga. So I think if you're playing well at that level, you definitely deserve a spot there. And Musa, yeah, as good as he is, but he didn't look too great. But I do like Yunus Musa a lot. I think he's a pretty strong, powerful midfielder. A little slow on the ball, but yeah, I'd like to see Cardozo in there as well.
Yeah, and my last little rant before we move on and preview Mexico. Obviously, the pitch was played on concrete. 3 inches of grass on concrete was not ideal. You could kind of see the ball wasn't moving like it usually should, which is unacceptable. Also, another bone to pick is how the hell is the national team being played behind a paywall in terms of U.S. commentary? I get it's March Madness and there's a lot of other sports going on right now, but the attendance of the game wasn't great. And it just like if you want to grow the national brand of U.S. soccer, you need to have these games publicly available. And I couldn't believe that the only public space it was on Unamas, which is they were speaking Hispanic or Mexican. So I mean, or Spanish, excuse me, Jesus. But yeah, so that was really the only bone to pick I had in terms of the U.S. for this camp. Now, in terms of playing against Mexico, there we go. I was getting my words confused. Are you confident on this final that it's going to happen at 9:00 tonight Eastern time, or are you a little bit worried? As Mexico did beat Panama 3-0 to get to the final.
The U.S. always shows up against Mexico, I feel like, especially recently. I think the last, as long as I can remember, the last 5 times they've played them, I think they've won or gotten a draw, whether it be a friendly or a competitive game such as the final tonight. So I'm pretty confident going into it just because of the stake that it has in the game. But if they come out on the front foot like they did against Jamaica, it could be a very long night because, Mexico does also show up against the U.S. So it could go either way. But if they play like they did against Jamaica, it could be a long night, especially with Mexico beating Panama, not a strong side, but still 3-0. That's, showing some pretty good offensive
firepower.
Yeah, that's the word. So we'll see. It could be a long night. I honestly think it could be a pretty low scoring game, definitely an overtime seeker for sure. But I'm predicting, I think it'll be 1-1 going to extra time, and then U.S. can hopefully get a 2-1 for the final. So
we do love a late goal against Mexico. It's happened a ton of times, and Miles Robinson is the one I'm remembering had a nice headed goal a couple of years ago against Mexico in the final. So I wouldn't say I'm as confident as you. Santiago Jimenez kind of was off the bench in the last game. I think he'll start. Irving Lozano got some rest as well. So they're going to go full strength. So hopefully we show up here, but honestly, at this point, I just want to see the cracks in Berhalter's reign here and finally, show that this guy is not the guy for Copa America. I think it's too late to make a change now. So obviously I'm always rooting for the national team, but it's a very frustrating game to watch at times when it comes to the U.S. national team, just in general. But I wanted to move on to, we have some really good Euro qualifying games in terms of a couple teams are trying to punch their ticket in for the Euros this summer. And, you are actually Ukrainian. So you have a dog in this fight. Let me know if you can see that.
Yep.
Well, you can. Okay, cool. So just wanted to go through the different scenarios here and, maybe predict a little bit how, I'm going to just zoom in just a little bit. This is path A here. So Wales beat Finland and Poland beat Estonia. So this will be played on Tuesday, I believe. Wales versus Poland to punch their ticket to the Euros. How do you like lean aside here?
To be honest, I think it's pretty heavily favored for Poland, in my opinion. I think offensively, they're a lot better than Wales. I mean, Wales does have the likes of Brennan Johnson, who Spurs lad, so I'm always up for him. And I mean, they also have Ben Davies. They're pretty strong defensively, but I think Poland at the end of the day, 5-1 against Estonia. That's pretty good result. So I think they'll probably edge away here. It could be pretty close though, because Wales, they don't really have a good team on paper. I think Poland on paper look much better on all foots, defensively and offensively. But Wales is always, for some reason, they're always a tricky team to beat. Definitely well coached. So it could be close, but I would probably give the edge to Poland here.
Our legend Karol Swiderski actually got the start against Poland or Estonia, so we'll see if he starts. I think this one will go to PKs. Actually, I think this is going to be a really tight game. Both sides are going to be nervous and are going to just not want to step out of their comfort zone to lose this match. Just with Wales, like you said, with Wales, they moved on from Bale and Aaron Ramsey and Joe Allen and kind of those, senior players that they depended on. A lot of youth in that Wales team right now. mixed with Poland, where they have Lewandowski and a lot of veterans. So I think Poland will get it done here. But it'll be a really fun game to watch. So I definitely encourage all of our listeners of the show to go ahead and definitely tune in. So Path B, Ukraine beat Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Iceland beat Israel. Ukraine, it is now Ukraine versus Israel, or Iceland, excuse me, in the finals here. Are you going to back your Ukrainian side here?
100%. Yeah, no doubt in my mind. I mean, I think even if I wasn't, being with my own Ukrainian bias, I still think on paper they look much better. I mean, they got a little fortunate against Bosnia with 2 late goals. Bosnia's a pretty strong team. Iceland, I mean, they always, everyone remembers them for the heroics in 2016. But, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a close game, similar to Wales and Poland. I could potentially see PKs. It'll be nervous, but I think Ukraine does have the slight edge over Iceland. Because honestly, like I'm trying to think. I can't even think of a single Icelandic player that I know, really. I mean, there's like Goodmanson that plays on, or he was on Burnley, but like I don't really know too many players from Iceland anyway. So I think Ukraine, they have a decent amount of firepower. So we'll definitely gonna back them here, but it could be close.
Yeah, I mean, with Mudryk coming in, you have Dubovnik, Sudakov, another good player. Sakhankov is injured, who's been having a great season with Girona so far. Zinchenko. They have Mikalenko from Everton. They have the guys to get this done, and I think they will. Even Ukraine bias aside, I think they'll definitely punch their ticket, and it would probably be the best story of the tournament, I'd have to say, just in regards of what Ukraine's going through right now, just in general. This will be played not in Ukraine. I don't even know where Wrocław is. I'm actually going to check here just because I'm curious where it is. Okay, it's in Poland. So they'll be playing in Poland. So they won't have their home venue, but that I don't think that'll matter because they're pretty used to playing in Poland. And then for Path C, Georgia beat Luxembourg, and then Greece crushed Kazakhstan. So Georgia versus Greece in the final. We got a little Kvaratskhelia on there. I don't really know any other Georgian players, but are you which team are you leaning here?
I want to lean towards Georgia. I feel like they're definitely going to be an underdog here. I mean, they do have Kvaratskhelia, who's a class player, but also just with my roots, I do have a little bit of Georgian in me. My grandpa's is born there, so that's why I'm going for them. But Greece, I feel like, again, don't really know too much about them, but they're probably stronger than them. I know, Greece typically is in the Euros. They have some decent players all around. I know they've moved on from some veterans that they've had, but it's a game that, honestly, it's a toss-up, in my opinion. But I'm going to be edging on Georgia, and it looks like they're going to be the home side in this game too. So hopefully that have some sort of advantage.
Gotcha. No, absolutely. I'm going to actually lean Greece here. I think they just have the better full round squad. As well as you, aren't as familiar with a lot of their players as of late, but I just, from looking at the lineups, I just think that Greece are probably the better side. They'll need a Kvaratskhelia magic though, if Georgia's going to go through here. So I'm definitely going to be intrigued for how the game goes. Now, there was a couple other games that we quickly wanted to get to in terms of games that happened, and some of these games were played actually yesterday. So England played Brazil, and Brazil actually won. So, are you obviously Harry Kane's injured right now, but was this a result that is concerning for England, or is this just like an international friendly and you got to test some things? How do you stand when it comes to international friendlies, and are you more of a let's experiment when the game doesn't matter, or do you get concerned when good teams lose? Obviously it's Brazil, so it's not a bad loss, but just wanted to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, that Brazil squad did not look very strong, and I know they're very injury driven right now. Like defensively, I don't think that's they don't have either Ederson or Alisson. I know Gabriel is hurt, Marquinhos is hurt. So defensively, they were not. That's probably their B team that's out there. In the midfield too, didn't really look too great. I mean, you got Bruno Guimaraes in there. Then
Paqueta as well.
Paqueta, yeah. So you got likes of that, but then up front too, you have, I mean, Neymar's Neymar. Everyone knows how good he is, but he's been hurt. I mean, you got Rodrigo up there, Vini, but other than that, like they don't, Brazil's not the force that they were at this moment. And England, honestly, England have one of the best squads I've ever seen. Like every player there is world class, and you can make so many 11s. And there's players, it's tough to get in because of how good an 11 they have. I mean, Kane's hurt, but then you have Ollie Watkins, who has, I believe, this season in the Prem, goals and assists combined, he has the most of any player. So that's your backup striker right there. And they didn't, again, but I'm the type of guy, I think friendlies are kind of a waste of time. And I know a lot of people don't really try too much, but you want to, they're at that level, all they care about is winning. But I don't really think it's a worry for England. Again, I didn't really watch too much of the game, but I did hear a bunch of stories about Bellingham, and he just looks not happy with England. I mean, he just really loves his life in Spain, I guess, but he just did not look like he was enjoying his time out there playing with the national team. And you have the likes of, I thought Chilwell, from the highlights I saw, played horribly. I saw a cross of him that just was basically as bad as Sterling's free kick from the other weekend. And it's just crazy. You have the likes of players like that just not really doing too well. Again, it's a friendly, so I don't think it should be any sort of concern. But, you are at Wembley. You should get a result. And, you lose 1-0, and then you have 17-year-old Endrick scoring the game winner against you.
No, absolutely. Max just broke up a little bit. But a couple storylines that oh, sorry. You came back.
Yeah, I was just trying to end it off here saying they still have such a good squad. I don't think it should be a worry in terms of the Euros. In my opinion, I think they're a heavy favorite for the Euros. I mean, they always, people think they just choke all the time, which is very typical of them. But it seems like if there's a time to do it, they got to do it now. And I think they still can. And I don't think this result is really going to batter them in any sort of way in terms of confidence. They'll probably be fine. But yeah.
There was a lot of good storylines. Like you mentioned, Endrick getting his first goal for the Brazilian national team, I believe.
Youngest player to score at Wembley, too, I saw.
Such a young player. Yeah. Other storylines, Beraldo, the center back for PSG, got his debut. I also saw, I think it was Kobe Mainu got his first minutes for the English senior national team, which is huge. I know our good friend Jake was very excited about Kobe Mainu. When it comes to England in the Euros, I'm going to lay out an XI, and I wanted to see if you agree with England's best XI that they should field. So I'm going to go with Pickford in net, Kyle Walker on the right, John Stones, and now the other center back's a tough one. I'm not going to go Harry Maguire. I'm going to go Lewis Dunk. Left back's tough. I agree with your Ben Chilwell take here, but I guess he's really the only guy that I'm seeing right now who should, play left back. And then Rice, Bellingham, Foden in the midfield. Rice, Bellingham, Foden midfield, and then Saka on the right, Rashford on the left, with Harry Kane up top. Is that England's best XI for the Euros?
Yeah, I mean that midfield and front three is exactly what I would go with. I think those positions are pretty locked. And defensively is where the questions are raised, especially at the center back and left back position. I'm not a big advocate for Pickford, but he does perform for England. And it's kind of the same story with Harry Maguire. Like, he's not the greatest, but when it comes to his international appearances, he plays well for England. What I don't get is, I mean, I think Gareth Southgate is very biased when he comes to picking players, and he doesn't really look at players outside of the Prem besides Bellingham. But I think Tomori, it doesn't even get called up, is a great center back. And it makes no sense to me that he not only doesn't start, but doesn't even get selected for the squad. I think he would be a starter 100%. Makes no sense to me. But yeah, it definitely is Stones in the middle. Although he doesn't typically play center back for City, but I mean he can play almost anywhere, but he's definitely locked in there. The right back spot too is kind of tricky. Like I know you said Walker. Walker's good, but he's getting up there in age. He's still a great player, but depending on Trent's fitness, I think it should be Trent or Reece James, one of the two, but they're both just so injury driven. And then same thing with the left back position. It's either Chilwell or Luke Shaw. If Luke Shaw is fit, I think should get the nod over Chilwell. But again, it's just a matter of if you can be fit by June, because I know they're all injury driven, those guys we just mentioned. But that midfield three of Bellingham, Rice, and Foden honestly is like the best midfield in Europe, I think, on any international team. That three is just ridiculous. But if Bellingham played like he did yesterday he just seemed like he just didn't care. I mean, it was a friendly, but he just didn't look like himself like he is at Madrid yesterday. But that's still like, that's the three. Can't really think of any other replacements. I mean, and then you have people on the bench like Kobe Mainu, who I saw a clip of him actually in the England training, and he was just dominating, taking the ball off people crazily. But unfortunately, you're under Rice, and Declan Rice is just incredible. That front three of Saka and Kane and Rashford, that's a lock in my opinion too. I don't see anyone else going over their spots. And then their replacements, Kane's hurt, you got Ollie Watkins. And then Rashford is kind of been mediocre to say, I guess, this season. So, but there's just no one else unless you want to take Foden out of the midfield three, put him on the left, and then replace him and put Maddison there. That's all I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
But which I think is honestly pretty good right there. But if Rashford at his best, then Rashford's there, and then Foden stay in the middle. But if Rashford's going to be kind of lackadaisical and underperforming, then I think Foden should go on the left with Maddison at that 10 role in behind Kane. Little Spurs bias for me there, but I think Maddison is not world class, but he's very, very good. And it's just tough with, the only way I think he plays is if Foden is not playing in the middle, because Foden, in my opinion, has been probably the best player in the Prem this season. And he's showing it week in and week out, and he can play either on the middle or in the middle or on the wing, and which is great how versatile he is. But I think, our 11s are pretty similar, I'd say. Like you said.
I think that Fikayo Tomori is a great shout. I also think Ruben Loftus-Cheek should find himself in the squad as well. You also have Joe Gomez, who's played left back, center back, and right back for Liverpool, that could slot in anywhere if needed with injuries. Another alternative, like you said, Foden out on the right, replacing Rashford, and you could either put Trent Alexander-Arnold next to Rice, or you could throw in a Maddison. I think Bellingham should play the 8 role just based off the state of the squad. But if Trent's playing really well and could sit next to Rice, I think Bellingham in that 10 role could also be really intriguing with Foden and Saka on the wing with Harry Kane. So I think James Maddison, Southgate has a great problem to have with such great players. So, if I'm him, I'm definitely trying to see who's going to take their chance. And then obviously Kobe Mainu and the great story he is could somehow find his way in the XI, or at least first guy off the bench as well. Now, there was just another game that I thought was really interesting. Germany actually beat France 2-0. In Germany, no one's talking about Germany, even though they're hosting the tournament this summer. With Nagelsmann at the helm, I was surprised that France lost. Mbappe played, Dembele played, Thuram played. Zaire Emery actually got a solid minutes with Tushanami and Rabiot, Lucas Hernandez, Upamecano, Pavard, and Koundé back line. So I think this is not a result to freak out if I'm France, because they are the dead-on favorites for this tournament. But they have a lot of options. But I really wanted to talk about Germany because we saw Havertz play up top and scored a goal. You have the breakout season of Florian Wirtz now, and it seemed like Nagelsmann played Wirtz on the left, Musiala on the right, with Gundogan, Cruz, and Andrich midfield. Is that the midfield that you think Nagelsmann's going to stick with, or do you think a Pavlovic or a Leroy Sané could play out on the wing, and then you could either have Wirtz or Jamal Musiala play in that 10 role?
Yeah, no, those are good points to raise. I think that midfield is probably going to stay the same. Like, it is pretty much the best midfield they can have. I think Florian Wirtz is crazy how good he is and how young he is. but that's probably going to stick with Germany. And it showed yesterday. Again, it's a friendly, so you can't really take too much out of it. But I think him is good. Cruz is still he's getting up there in age, but man is just so good, and it's proves it time and time again. I'm happy that he came out of international retirement just to help out this Germany team. But it's been weird. I think the reason why no one's talking about Germany in general is just because the last few tournaments they've been in, they just got knocked out early, right? 2018 World Cup, the Euros, and this past World Cup. So, I mean, it could be the same story, but they do look really good. And France played a pretty strong 11. I wouldn't say that's their strongest 11. But the only thing I think is I would like to see Sane in there. I think he's very, very good and should be playing on the right. But other than that, I think it'll probably stay the same, at least in the midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Good problems to have if you're Nagelsmann. I think Pascal Gross, Pavlovic, Leroy Sané, Gnabry, if they get back to good form, they could find themselves on the wing. But I think Germany is definitely going to lean on the likes of Florian Wirtz and Musiala to bring the magic, and then you have Bayer and Havertz up top, whoever you want to choose from there. So Gundogan definitely a shoe in. I think Cruz, like you said, is probably a shoe in, and then figuring out where the players are going to play is the big question. Now, the last topic I wanted to get to in terms of the recap is Portugal. They played Sweden and beat Sweden 5-2. And Portugal, last international break, I made a big take that, they're top 3 favorite in this tournament for the Euros. And Sweden's a good team. I mean, they have Gyökeres up top, who's been the best player in Portugal, Alexander Isak playing with them, Alenga on the left, Kulusevski on the right. The rest of the team is so-so, but that was star-studded attack. I thought they'd do more to give Portugal trouble, but Portugal didn't play Ronaldo. They started with Goncalo Ramos, Bernardo Silva, and Rafa Leao up top with Bruno Fernandes, Palhinha, and Mateus Nunes in the middle. Do you think this Portugal team should be, a top 3 favorite? And how do you feel about them going to the tournament with Roberto Martinez at the helm?
I think they're a top 3 favorite for sure. Roberto Martinez being the manager now, I think it's better than Fernando Sancho, right?
Santos, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a better manager for sure. And Roberto Martinez, I mean, I feel he doesn't have too good of a track record. Didn't really do much with Belgium's golden generation, right? They've got knocked out pretty early, other than a semifinal run in the 2018 World Cup, but definitely expected more out of them, and it just didn't really seem to do too well there. Portugal, though, on paper, they have such a good squad, so I think they should be a top 3 favorite, if not a top 2 favorite. I still think England should be the favorite, but Portugal they're just good. Like, they are a very, very good team. That front 3 with Bernardo Silva, Rafa Leao, and Goncalo Ramos. I mean, I'd rather have. I still want to see Cristiano play up there, but I know he's getting up there. I still love him. I want to see him play still, just because it's sad, and I don't like getting sad over it. But yeah, and then you have the likes in the midfield, João Palhinha. And who else do they?
Bruno Fernandes and Mateus Nunes was the starting 3.
Just completely blanked my mind there. Yeah, but that's a very good midfield. Defensively, you got Nuno Mendes, Ruben Diaz, Pepe, who's still as old as he is, just great player. And then on the right, Diogo Dalot. And then in goal, you got Costa. Like, that's just a good team. They'll definitely make a run. I'm not sure if they'll win it. Because there's teams like France too. Maybe I'd edge them over that. I think that's probably the top 3: England, France, and Portugal. I want to say Germany too, but I don't know. Just the way they've been in the previous tournaments, and the team is somewhat similar. I mean, they do have now Wirtz and Musiala just kind of running the show, but unlike previous tournaments. But it'll be interesting to see how Portugal does. I think they're pretty sneaky favorites, I'd say, to do a run in the Euros.
Yeah, my biggest take, or 2 biggest takes when it comes to Portugal, is number 1, I think your best Portugal lineup is without Cristiano Ronaldo at the stage. I think you bring him on in the 60th minute every single game when you need a goal, but you start Goncalo Ramos or whoever else you want, Andre Silva up top. I just don't think this team is built to have Cristiano at this point, with just like how old he is and the work ethic that's going to need to be played through 90 minutes. So I'd have Cristiano as a super sub. My other one is, I think that João Neves from Benfica, the wonder kid, should start in this midfield next to Bruno Fernandes and João Palhinha. I don't think Mateus Nunes is better than João Neves, and that might be a hot take. A lot of people haven't watched João Neves play other than in the Europa League with Benfica, but this kid has played every single game for Benfica this year. He's been the best player on the team, and I would like to see him start in the Euros. So that's like my big stamp of approval there. But I'm glad we got to at least have this conversation and just cover some of the international friendlies that were, especially with the Euro knockouts. Just a couple games that I wanted to shout out that should be interesting as we wrap up international break on Tuesday. Other than the Euro finals, there's a couple good games here. We have, let's see here. We have England versus Belgium, a good matchup. Belgium are going to be, wanting to prove themselves here after a disappointing World Cup. You also have, the Dutch play Germany. We haven't even mentioned the Dutch, but the Dutch look great in their first game. And I think that they could give Germany some trouble here. And maybe they're not being talked about much, but they're definitely a top 5, top 7 team. As well as, Spain plays Brazil. Spain just is injured right now, so I'm not going to draw. I didn't really want to touch on them in this pod just because we're seeing kind of a B Espanol team. And then, going in with Mexico, United States tonight is going to be the biggest game. But Max, thank you so much for hopping on. We're definitely going to have you on again, maybe to talk Spurs later on in the calendar year here. But thank you so much for your time. And, we'll be back on Thursday. So go ahead, and if you're watching this video on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're listening to this via podcast, go ahead and download the video and give us a 5-star rating on any, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere where you get your podcast. Give us a 5-star rating. And the betting show will also be back on Thursday, so go check that out. But Max, great talking to you, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah, sounds good. Appreciate having me on, Daniel.